Countdown is 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, folks, welcome back. We are back. For those who maybe don't know what I'm talking about, we just finished a podcast. It'll be posted on the same channel, but if you are interested, we will also be now going over some other stuff, little questions. We collected some questions during the podcast, got a little Q&A here with my friend Croncy. We're gonna answer the hard-hitting ones. And to start us out, I do see something in the chat that I wanted to talk about for a second. Somebody said that talking about being tired switches them off from the channel. I want folks to know, when we talk about maybe taking a break from the game, or being tired with the progress of the game, or even being super excited about the game, that's not necessarily us telling you guys you also have to feel the same. We are mainly looking at this game like, part of what you try to do in this position is look at the game from as many different angles as possible. We always use our own opinion when, we want to, but I'm also trying to talk to 100% of the player base. So that includes people who are super pumped, super hyped, very excited, people who are not having the best time and maybe are looking for answers on what they should do with their free time. It's not necessarily a change in the content of the channel. It's not a focus on a certain type of content. We will have all different kinds of messages coming out. So I just would like to be clear with folks that it's not, don't focus too much on a single statement like that or anything. But anyways, let's get into questions.
I also think just on that as well, I think it's also relevant to remember that, like, Tomato and I play this game a lot more than most people do, because we try to make content for it. So a lot of our opinions on like our tiredness and stuff are going to be a bit exasperated.
That is true. Yeah, that's when you get tired of Star Citizen, you might put it down. When I get tired of it, I go and write more about it. It is an everyday kind of thing, which is the choice that we made. Love the game. Honestly, it's part of the best part of my day. It's just getting to follow what's going on with it.
Yeah.
But let's get into the questions. We got quite a few. Here's our first about 3.20. What are the hidden features that may come to 3.20 or later this year that CIG have not put on the release view that may surprise us, if there is any, or will it be just what we currently see? We kind of went over this, so just going over some of the stuff we touched on.
So I think, bounty hunting is probably bound to come up again soon, whether it's going to be actually put into a patch or not. Like exactly what you said, they've been talking about it for a while, and it's been popping up in the monthly reports and stuff. I don't think it's going to come 3.20, but I think they'll probably talk about it pretty soon. The derelict settlements will come at any time, and will probably surprise us regardless, because we know they're working on them, but it's just going to be a case of, hey, is it released? Cool, here it is. And then probably some ships. There'll be some surprise ships, I almost guarantee you, because the monthly reports, once again, there's finished ships like every second month. We don't get a new ship every second month. So there'll be some vehicles coming in probably.
Do you think, because they talked about two different things they showed from the Squadron 42 development last year, we talked about EVA T2 and the platforming improvements. You think we might see either of those two things kind of slip into 3.20 after being mentioned in recent monthly reports?
Probably not.
Nope.
It's hard to tell, but once again, I think 3.20 is too close. Like they've already committed the majority of the things in the pipeline. So yeah, probably not. I don't think we're going to see much of a surprise in anything 3.20, but 3.21 may end up having significantly more than you would think.
Something has to. Like I thought 3.20 might be the big patch this year, but it seems maybe 3.21 will be. But they're gonna have a patch that's fairly significant. That's not 3.18, I think. So I agree with you.
Most likely, or we will just have an absolutely insane 4.0, which is a possibility. It's a possibility, right? Because the big thing that I think is relevant in 4.0 is that it's mostly like, so the server meshing is obviously the big thing. Other than that, it's just locations. How many bugs have we seen, like game-breaking bugs have we seen with locations? There's been a few, but it's few and far between. Like Crusader rocked up and it didn't completely break the game. Microtech rocked up, it didn't completely break the game. It's just places.
Yeah.
So like whatever else gets tagged onto that patch could be the actual like player-facing features, and so we could just see this absolute monster patch theoretically.
Well, it seems like maybe they want to make a bigger splash with it than 3.0 was, but geez, there's a lot of things being worked on that, like all of that in one patch, or maybe the patches that come a little bit after it. That's a lot. I'm not going to say next year will be a big year for development because of that. I'm done with that. but it could be. We'll say that. As always, it could be.
Yeah.
All right. Do you think that the Fury Racer is just another try to milk a subset of the community, especially as in AC, your bot ships in the PU don't count, and you need to buy it with real money in order to use it in AC? I don't think that's true. You can buy ships with REC, right?
Yes, but I don't believe they go up for sale immediately.
Right.
Necessarily.
Yeah.
But also the answer is every ship is a way for them to milk consumers. That's their funding model. Like literally though, right? That's their funding model, of course.
It is. Yeah.
It's I think one big thing that comes up a lot in a similar vein is anytime we get like a combat ship, everyone's like, oh, they're going to make this combat ship super, super overpowered so that everyone only wants to use this. When really that's only happened like twice, right? Like it's where we've had a ship come out and just be super, super overpowered. And then it's been nerfed, not to the point of being... The Ares is an exception, but not to the point of absolute garbage. Yeah. They nerf them to a point where they're just like fine. Like people were saying it about the Corsair when it came out. People were like, this is so overpowered. It's got so much ballistics, it's going to kill everything. And they didn't change anything and it didn't break the game and nothing like that happened. The same thing is going to happen with the racing ship here. I think one important thing to remember with the racing community is we make our own rules. So if we think a ship is too busted and we don't want that to be used in certain events, then we'll just ban it. And everyone's fine with that. Like it's a non-issue, essentially.
Coming at that from, I guess, a more pessimistic feeling, do you think that it is unnecessary for them to bring in that ship? Like they're doing too much, trying to read into the question a little bit more. Like they're doing too much to try and cater to racers with the perfect thing that they might want just to get them to buy in.
I think so if you look at every profession in the game and how many ships are dedicated to that profession, obviously combat, there's a ton. It's a combat game, of course there's going to be. Yeah. Cargo has quite a few ships. Then you have things like mining and salvage, which have one ship each. Racing is actually in a very similar state. There's only really 2 or 3 ships, and they're all of different weight classes that are actual like racing ships that are in the game. So having another one that should theoretically have enough different with it for you to actually decide whether you want to use that over a Razor or possibly an Archimedes. It should be somewhere in that range. Should be fine. Like there's 3 racing ships now. But with that, theoretically, there's 3 racing ships of that size. I think that's fine.
Okay. I'll be interested in seeing how that turns out. I was really hoping that we'd see like a industrial version of it. I think it'd be so cool to have like a Fury that you could have in the back of your ship that has like tractor beams or mining lasers or something on it, that just a little helper that you can pop out, no quantum drive, get the job done, take it home.
I mean, we still could. We still could, right? Like they only released it in released it in 3.19.
Yeah.
And now there's another one coming out. There's no reason why we couldn't see another. Yeah.
And honestly, if we did see another one, people would definitely start calling more of like, okay, you guys stop making more of the same shit, please. So yeah, I think it'll probably be done for a little while, but I do hope that this means that they're willing to do more small ships like that they could just do them for different kinds of stuff. Next question here is, will we see Space Tomato get into community races and when? I guess that's kind of for me. I've done the Daymar Rally once or twice, but usually I like to cover the races more than participate in them. I think My problem with events, not gonna lie, this probably sounds like a dumb reason to have a problem. I have trouble sitting in one of these chairs for like more than 2 hours playing games. It's not comfortable. I'm a console player. I grew up on couches and like laying on the floor in weird positions while my feet were up on the wall and I was playing games. So like sitting in a computer desk or computer chair at a desk for 3 hours has taken some getting used to. So I think as the game gets more stable and I get more used to the comfort of sitting here, I'll get into those things more. But for now, I like to cover them. I like making videos about the events.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah,
You shoutcast, but do you race?
Yeah, I race. That's sort of how I got started with it. I was doing lots of ground racing, and I joined the Stanton 7, but formerly Stanton 7, now the System 7, 2 years in a row, and I qualified both times. So, like that's how I got into that, was ground racing primarily, and then I've done a lot of ship racing since, because it's obviously there's ship racing in the game now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sort of like on that sort of complaint, Tomato, is like you will now have Arena Commander. You won't have to sit down for 2 hours to get a bunch of racing practice.
Very true.
Right? You'll just be able to hop into a Yadar Valley, and I mean in 2 hours you should be able to get like 100 laps done theoretically, right? So
okay.
Yeah, that's sort of what in the main episode I was talking about. It's going to make hyper competitive Star Citizen playing, whether that's PvP or racing, much more accessible to everyone.
I am the proof. Yeah, nice. Okay. Well, that's solid news. Maybe I'll be starting to do more community events. Let's see. Next question comes from DJ Catmom, a event manager here on our GII Discord server. Croncy, is there any animosity in pro racing community towards CIG for basically reinventing the player-made track into something official? Do you believe CIG needs to continue this or focus on creating their own tracks from scratch and leave the player-created wild tracks alone?
I don't think I've heard a single racer say it was a bad thing. Everyone's hyped for this. It's super, super exciting. Like, like doing like people will still create their own tracks in the PU. People have been doing it recently. Echo Bit, who's in the Twitch chat at the moment, the head of ANZI Alliance, who does the Crux Cup and stuff. They've been creating a bunch of tracks around the new Lawville, right? It's 100% going to be a thing. But there's no animosity at all. The fact that we have Arena Commander now is super, super beneficial for just everyone. I think the only people who are sort of a little mad are the ground racers, because there's no ground racers in Arena Commander yet. But we know that that's a thing they're looking at. So
that'd be really cool if they had ground races on green while people were racing up in the city in the sky up above. Oh, that'd be sick.
That'd be super cool. Yeah.
Okay, next question. Do you think that the engine/GFX/VFX teams ostensibly polishing tech for Squadron 42 is at least an indication towards Squadron 42 could be going into beta during CitizenCon? So, like, do you think recent news points towards Squadron going into beta during CitizenCon?
I don't know if it's beta that soon, but it obviously points towards work being completed, right? Not just that it's happening, but it's actually they're starting to finish a lot of really important tasks. The biggest thing is, though, that like you need a lot more than just like the engine team done in order to have a successful beta build. So, but it's a lot of stuff that we don't know about. So mostly just, I think it's likely we'll see some polished stuff soon. Whether it's playable or not is a different story.
Okay. Let's see. Do you like Croncy as a guest? We certainly do. I mean, let me put it this way. I'm pretty sure we just recorded the longest episode of the launch sequence I've ever done. So let that be your answer. It's great talks every time. I think, Croncy, you've been on here 3 times now? 2 or 3 times?
I think this is my third, and then I've also been on the
Citizen Central.
Citizen Central.
Yeah. So like
twice, I think I've been on Citizen Central twice.
So yeah, I like having Croncy around. Good talks, and like, how can dude, the beard is just like permanent entertainment. Just watching the beard during the podcast, I just sit here and man, this is me. is what I get. So I'm always, I love having Croncy on here. It's just hard with the times, but you make the time zones work pretty well.
One thing that's been weirdly humbling, not humbling. One thing that's been like weirdly cool the last like week is even people who have disagreed with my like YouTube video and stuff have been saying like, man, this is an actual garbage take, but you're a cool dude. I like you. I was like, okay, I'll take it. You got it, buddy.
Oh man, like, oh dude, don't take this personally, but I really hate your content. But you sound great. You sound like you'd be a good friend. I'd love to have a beer with you. And it's like, well, all right then. YouTube comments, man, they just build you up. No, actually, there's a lot of kind people in YouTube comments. They just don't get the drama. All right, next question. Will each ship have a different SCM? They're asking interceptors, fighters, bombers. And that was the end of it. Sorry, I made it sound like there was more to come. That was
yeah, it sounds like they're supposed to. They just, once again, it's not a mechanic that they've talked a ton about, but obviously we're going to get to experience it a lot with 320 and being able to check out master modes. Based on how they have talked about it, my assumption is that ships like interceptors will have a much higher SCM because that's their whole deal, is being able to catch up to people, versus like a trading ship, which is probably going to have a pretty low SCM. But we don't know that until they actually give us definitive numbers.
Yeah.
The only thing we know is that it's slower. Everyone's SCM has come down.
Really, they've slowed down SCM across the board. Oh, well, I guess
like everyone's top speed has come down.
Yeah. I assume it's just like how it is now. Some ships can fly regular combat at 300 meters per second. Some can only do 150. Like, I'm guessing the SCM level will be different for each ship. It'll be different based on the type of ship, and I'm really hoping it'll be different based on components. But the only thing they've really said will be affected by components is that sort of transitionary period between SCM and nav mode. So we don't know how different they may be, but I think we can all expect that there will be differences in SCM speeds between ship class.
Yeah, this is as impactful for ship maneuverability as actual like ship combat was in 314 when we had the capacitor changes and stuff. So almost everything changes. Balance completely changes. The way that they can balance things completely changes. But once again, you can sort of always kind of guess how they're going to go about it. Like exactly like you said, components will probably affect things like SCM speed. Like I can assume that something like a cooler may allow you to, overdrive. No, that's not, overload your like engines a bit more or something like that. But yeah, we're yet to see it, and it's going to require a ton of balance. I actually think we will not see completed master modes in the game for a couple of years. And it's going to be kind of like a mainstay in Arena Commander, where they're just always testing out new ships and new ways of using it.
It's going to be years. This is like this in engineering. I'm starting to feel more and more like 4 or 5 years until majority of ships are running correctly on them. And even then we enter beta, and then there's all the balancing that has to go through with this. This is like one of the inherent problems with Star Citizen is they need the devs to make these game systems, but in order to make the game systems, they had to fund the devs for 5 years. And in order to do that, they had to sell the ships. Selling the ships didn't have the features, so now they have to update the same ships they sold to give the features that they paid for. It's like, it's a crazy situation Star Citizen is in. And I think things like master modes and engineering really put it out there in the open.
Yeah, I will say, at least with engineering, it seems like the gameplay that we will be getting from engineering is like this was always intended, whereas master modes is a new idea. They had a combat system they had previously that they did do a lot of balancing on, and they changed a lot of things around, and then they said, we don't like this, so now we're getting master modes. And I do think master modes is an inherently better system. We haven't played it yet, but it sounds like a much better system. But that is like that is not wasted time, but like if that decision had been made 6 years ago, we'd be having a much different conversation.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of those kinds of moments in Star Citizen too.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. 3.20 will have the new EVA. And will the multi-tool need to be charged and lose battery power? So both of those for 3.20 again. New EVA and charge and batteries in the multi-tool. Do you think they'll be there?
I don't think either of those things will be in 320. The EVA, once again, I think actually might be a thing that they just present in CitizenCon as part of their big display, whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
The recharging for multi-tool, I don't think we're going to see that for quite a long time, because it's just a punishing mechanic essentially for right now. Like if they just put it in the game right now, it would just make things more annoying. And so there's no, you need to try to not make the game worse when it's already unstable. And that's one of the systems that would do that, right? So yeah, I don't think we'll see that for a while.
Yeah, I think charge and drain is one of those things that's being maybe worked on in the background, but they're not talking about it very much. And it's on the progress tracker, but we're not hearing much from it. It's going to be important, though, in terms of like the power stuff and engineering. So maybe we see something about charge and drain at CitizenCon, you think?
Possibly. I feel like they could probably tie it in with engineering, which we're almost definitely going to see stuff about, because there's just been teams dedicated on working in engineering for the past 2 years doing like nothing else. So, yeah, but yeah, not right now though.
Okay. Let's see. Hangers, somebody said. Clothing hangers too. It's not ship hangers, my friend. How big how big do you think they are? And could you have all your ships in one hanger or one hanger per ship?
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to do it. It's a very interesting question, right? Because so the only thing we have seen is a sneak peek of the freight elevators, and that's it, which also has technically not been confirmed and probably at this stage won't be coming in 320.
Right.
And that's sort of the only element of hangers we've seen. I would assume, though, that you still have to spawn your ships into the hangar, like one at a time, maybe two at a time or something, depending on the size of hangar you get. I don't know. We're talking like years in the future again, so I just don't know. Yeah,
hangars are a weird topic. They've come up and been pushed back multiple times, particularly persistent and personal hangars. And while I think obviously we have to get persistent hangars for those freight elevators to work, but custom hangars in the way that the question kind of implies, that there'll be different size hangars and stuff, and we'll have more ownership over how they're organized. I don't know if that's coming soon either. But that is, again, one of those things that's just like, I don't know where they are with that stuff. They have so many plans that have to do with that. And when you look at things like building interiors and UGFs and persistent hangars, a lot of signs point to it being a thing, but they don't talk about it much.
Yeah, I think the reason they don't talk about it much is because it keeps getting pushed back, right? There's a couple of features like that where they kind of just stay silent on because they just don't know, because anything could happen to it at any time.
Yeah. We need persistent hangars for freight elevators because the persistent hangars are meant to be where you can store cargo. And the freight elevators are essentially, you're supposed to call your freight. It comes in the freight elevator. You take it out and put it in your ship. The idea is meant to be that you can store that freight in your hangar until your ship is ready, or vice versa. Although I guess that's not necessarily a requirement. That's just something that they've linked with it. They've talked about them in the same context.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was easier to link the two, actual like mechanic wise. But once again, it's not features that they talk about a ton. So the only thing we know about freight elevators is that they bring freight to the hangar, and that's kind of it. So
yeah, and like the whole idea of persistent hangars is also, as somebody was asking in chat, like you can either own hangars in the place that you're always living, which probably means that you're not really paying that much for it, or you can rent hangars, which then requires you to pay more at a time. So overall, like there's a difference between persistent hangars and personal hangars. Personal hangars being the ones that you buy, persistent hangars just being the overall technology that supports them. Both seem like they're not going to be in 3.20. Another question. Do you think we'll see the separation of the replication layer by the end of this year?
I don't believe so, because I believe they don't separate the replication layer in static server meshing, which is what we're waiting on. I think that's for full server meshing.
Well,
so we won't see that until a very long time.
Well,
theoretically.
That is, see now, there's you're missing out not reading those letter from the chairman. He did put that in the letter for the chairman this year of before server meshing, trying to get the replication layer going on its own. So I think that's where the question comes from. I don't know though. I feel like they are going to wait until 4.0 and just do it all at once at this point, instead of trying to do all of this over multiple patches. But yeah, who knows? Another one, with the Hull C slated for 3.20, what do you expect to be the community response when it's going to be heavily limited in what it can buy and trade? Got an assumption or two in there, but ultimately, how do you think people will respond to any sort of, difficulties, I guess, that come from trading with the ship?
The community is going to hate it, but tough. It's one of those things where it's like we actually talked about this when we were talking about the mining update in Citizen Central, where people were complaining that they couldn't just make an absolutely insane amount of money Quantanium mining anymore, but they were still making good money like doing regular mining, and everyone lost their minds. Of course, people are going to hate it. People hate change, but it's that's what the ship's designed there for. It's going to open up more gameplay opportunities, and then when we also get other locations, it's going to fulfill itself even more. In general, I think people are going to love it, but there'll definitely be people complaining.
We're going to have a lot of I quit this game, this isn't what they should be doing moments throughout development, because there's a lot of features that they've confirmed, they've talked about, we know are going to be in the game that aren't super in your face. So when they get added, a lot of people will probably just leave the game. It's not a game for everybody with the way they're trying to make it work.
Yeah.
Let's see. Here's a good one. With the rise of griefing these public events, what tools would you like CIG to implement to make it harder for uninvolved parties to crash an event? I think this is a good one for you, being a public event person so much.
Yeah. So in general, because it's not, I just want to point out. So this is definitely coming from my video. I just want to point out from my video, I was not talking about creator events. I was talking about the game in general. And I would prefer that all options for preventing these things were in-game options, like hiring security and stuff. But the game is in a state where some things can happen and some things can be exploited that people just kind of have to deal with. And so that sucks. And so really the answer is like a bunch of things that will hopefully eventually arrive. So Bounty Hunter version 2, a more concrete understanding of what's going to happen with crimes, because crimes right now are in a terrible state where I can ram you and you get crime stat sort of thing. And then for people who are truly exploiting and truly messing around with things, I think there should be ways of blocking those people so that I don't have to deal with them shouting at me, or I can if they are doing exploits, that I can send in a report that isn't through Spectrum, basically.
Oh my god, yeah, seriously. Like, let me report glitches and bugs and stuff in the game, please. I would probably do so many more.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably the bigger thing is why can we not report bugs in game? That is crazy.
Yeah. Gosh, I would really like that. I agree with you. I think down to the most simple thing of scanning is kind of not fully functional right now. And that makes it harder to defend yourself against pirates. You can't have somebody who's sitting out over the event scanning specifically in a certain range of distance and reliably knowing whether or not they're picking up people, because it's not super clear right now. So that, being able to easily hire security to be there and have a system in game to hire and pay them, escrow, there's so many different ways that it could be fixed to make these events more safe for people to run, but right now they're not. And that makes it really frustrating to try and run them.
Yeah. And then obviously, like, once again, the Arena Commander update's coming in 320. That's absolutely huge. I like that's massive for some of these events. But like, people are still going to try to do fun things in the game all the time, regardless. So just having any sort of, like, once again, even if it's an in-game mechanic safeguard, is something that I feel like is a must.
Yeah. Sounds like people are misunderstanding what you were saying in your own video.
So many people said that that I was the one getting griefed, and I'm not. Like, it's just not the case. I don't know. There's a lot of things. Let's just say I won't be making a video like that again for a while.
Love that feeling, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Next question. What are your thoughts on a possible episodic release of Squadron 42 being talked about at CitizenCon 2023? That's an interesting question. Because it is episodic, right? I mean, the 3 games technically are supposed to be episodes of the same story.
Yeah, they've been calling them episodes. I don't know. It's sort of a hole in my knowledge. The only thing that I can say is if the game that we get does not have minimum 80 hours of gameplay, that's bad. So if that's episode 1 and it has 80 hours of gameplay, cool. If it's all 3 episodes released together and it's 80 hours of gameplay, cool.
80 is a lot. I would take like
It is
30, 40. Like, if they're doing this sort of linear kind of thing, no exploration or anything, I would definitely take like a couple dozen hours for a good story.
Yeah.
I just want a good freaking story, you know? Like,
well, yeah, that sort of depends on how like dense the story is too, right? Because the way that they've always talked about the game is that it's actually quite freeform. Like, it sounds like there's a lot of side missions that you can kind of just take and do that are just pretty much the equivalent of the missions that we have in Star Citizen. So it'll heavily depend on that. But with the amount of like stars that they have in the game, if you even just gave all of them 100 lines, that's probably 80 hours of gameplay. There's a lot of people in there.
Yeah, it is a lot of stars. I wonder how that's going to work with episode 2 and 3. If they're going to continue to try and do the whole star-studded cast thing, or if they'll take a step back and go with normal actors.
Yeah.
Not the most expensive people in the world.
Yeah. Well, once again, it's just hard to tell because they haven't really said anything since 2018.
Right. Yeah. So that's our best answer. We don't know. But it is supposed to release in 3 different games. Generally, when people talk about Squadron 42, they're talking about just that first game, though. So we don't know much about the other 2. Have you ever played the classic DOS RPGs made by SSI and AD&D? These are a lot of acronyms. Also called the Gold Box series. 2 of those were actually space RPGs called Buck Rogers. Have you?
No. As I mentioned earlier, Baldur's Gate 2 came out and I was 6 years old. So no.
Yeah, I've not either. DOS RPGs, isn't that like on the computer with the programming?
Yeah, I assume they're talking about DOS. Yeah, like
yeah. I'm sorry, I'm a bit young. I wasn't even playing even when I started playing games, which was in the mid 90s or late 90s. I was like on a Nintendo 64. I was just getting my legs. I didn't really get into even computer gaming. Like, I played Oregon Trail, StarCraft, and like Pajama Sam as a kid. A weird combination, but like I didn't actually get into computer gaming until like 2013. So
yeah. I think I built my first computer in 2011, and that's when I started properly gaming.
Yeah. So sorry to say, Trail was the best game ever. I would love a modern day Oregon Trail. I thought I heard that that's actually being made. It
was one that came out recently, pretty recently.
Yeah, I feel like they talked about there being both perspectives of the people on the Oregon Trail and then like Native Americans. And I would love to see like a full-blown RPG based on Oregon Trail. That would be cool. Because I died a lot in that game. That game taught me about death.
Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, there was one that came out in 2021, I believe. That was like a remake of another older version of it, but with like all updated stuff. I've watched someone play it. a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I didn't know that was out. Cool. All right. Next and final question we've got right now. Now that CIG Legal has stated in a legal case response that the game has been released, do you have any game scope anticipation changes? I could care less what a legal statement says. The game is not, it's not released. I still think that they're just going to keep doing the same thing they've always been doing. I don't know what statement is being talked about, but I don't think anything's going to change in terms of development.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of what some of the marketing team has done with the advertising of Star Citizen, because they definitely make it sound a lot more or a lot less buggy than it is. But until it stops saying alpha build or beta build, it's going to be irrelevant to me. The game is still an alpha.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a good point. Like, I think the biggest thing was earlier this year when they were putting out their playable now ads, and everybody was like, no, it's not. And they kept doing it for like 2 weeks, and everyone's like, can you please take these down? This is embarrassing. Yeah, it's just embarrassing. But I don't know about any statement of legal release. I'm guessing maybe that has to do with like selling stuff. I'm not sure, but it'll probably be something where it's like in some countries consumer rights are incredibly advanced. Australia is one of those countries, and so if like CIG say something about big protected consumer guy over here, sheesh.
Look, refunds are really easy to get in Australia. I don't know what to tell you.
That's nice.
But no, in general, there'll be things where it's like if you say a game is released and then you're claiming that it's not like pretty much anywhere else, then that's like grounds for lawsuits and stuff, which is probably why the terms that they use a lot more often is it's an alpha release or it's a beta release or anything. And it will not be something that just CIG do. I guarantee you Tarkov does it. I guarantee you DayZ used to do it. Every company that has a game in any stage like this will be doing the exact same thing.
Yeah. That's just how it be.
Yep.
All right, Croncy. That is all the questions we got for today. So,
Yay.
Yeah, cool, man. Hey, thanks for joining me again. Thanks for answering the questions, sitting out for the podcast. We were around for a long time, but I think this was a good little preview on what's going to be happening with CitizenCon and Alpha 3.20. I can see you're getting your camera started. OBS did the whole discolor thing. No problem. So that about does it. I am going to go ahead and for anybody who is here for the live stream, I will be sitting on the end screen for just a couple minutes here. Croncy is going to hop off and go live on his own, and we will go back over there and check out what he's doing. But for now, thank you everybody for coming to this Q&A. If you missed the podcast, that will be up soon, TM, probably in the next 12 hours. This will also be following on the same channel. But as always, folks, I appreciate you being here. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Consider supporting if you want to help us keep doing these things. And come join us on Discord if you want to ask questions. We sometimes put up some Q&A threads beforehand, like we will be doing for Citizen Central this week. So if you want to come and talk to us more about these shows or just hang out, always happy to have you. Either way, folks, thank you so much for being here. I will see you all next week, I guess. Yeah, about next week for another show. And have a good week. Bye.